Hi there Lego fans, and anyone who clicked on this link thinking they were getting a book review. My name is Ochre.
Even if that is your real name.
My name is Ochre, and this is my latest video, 50 Shades of Bley, in which I'm going to reveal to you the way I change the colour of Lego bricks. Now, some people may have noticed my previous video was a little bit on the dry side, so let's just recap.
Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah.
Now, some of you did suggest this video probably could have been a lot more interesting. They're all dead now, but I took their feedback to heart, and I'm going to try and make this video more exciting than nuns on unicycles. So, strap in. Nuns! Unicycles! So last year I built this fella out of Lego. He's a character from a certain well-known movie, directed by the devil incarnate, and some people thought I was cashing in on the movie's popularity. I wonder where you got that idea from. Anyway, this is generally regarded as the greatest Lego creation of all time, I assume, and that is not just my opinion, that's a scientific fact. Anyway, the trouble with building Gollum out of Lego is he's a clammy, greasy little bastard, and you just can't find colours like that in the Lego colour palette, which is why communists don't like Lego. So I needed to find a flesh tone, and I wasn't going to find it in the festival of sensory overload that is the Lego colour palette. I mean, does that look like a flesh tone? 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 Okay, bad example. So I had to do something to keep the colour of the model faithful to the original. Now I could have just painted it if it wanted to look like a dick. So instead I did some research on the internet, since they've burned down all the libraries now, and I discovered a technique I was able to use to change the colour of Lego. And this is the result. So it's a kind of peach colour in the middle. To the right you can see the standard Lego tan, and on the left you can see the standard Lego white. So it's somewhere in between the two. So that's what I'm going to reveal to you now, how I did it, after mercilessly teasing you all for like 6 months. So, drum roll that please. Are we done yet? I thought I said I'd do a 30-second drum roll. It's been like 45 minutes now. Well, who the hell does a 45-minute drum roll? Well, I know I said build suspense, but if like suspense was donuts, we'd all have like diabetes right now. Let's just get on with it. Ta-da! So this is RIT fabric dye. It's pretty cheap, comes in a lot of different colours. You can pick this up at Joann's or Michael's or any craft store named after a person. And it also comes in both liquid and powder form. And that was what I used. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching. Okay, so here's the deal. At this point, all the Lego fly-by-nights have seen the big reveal, and they've paused the video, and they've run down the store to get a bunch of RIT fabric dye. And at this very moment, they are dousing their Lego bricks with RIT fabric dye, and nothing is happening. And that's because there's a second ingredient, which is necessary to make the process work. Now, between you and me, since we go back a long way, I'm going to explain to you how to use that second ingredient. And then I'm going to give you a demonstration and look at the results and give you some tips and tricks. Okay, so Lego is made out of a plastic called ABS. This stands for Axiobulatory Benzene Supertectide. Now, ABS is not porous normally and won't absorb the pigment of the dye. So to get it going, it needs a little bit of chemical help, kind of like me before 9 AM in the morning. And the drug of choice in this case is acetone. Now, If you're a lady, you can find acetone in any makeup aisle. It's nail polish remover. Just make sure you get a pure acetone mix and not a mixture of ethyl acetate and acetone. If you're a gentleman and the thought of going down the makeup aisle and bursting into flames worries you, you should just strap on your lumberjack costume, head on down to a big manly hardware store, and you can pick up a nice big manly can of the stuff. Like I said, it's very easy to pick up. So at this point, some of the Lego nerds among you are probably saying, "But Ian, everyone knows that acetone is a solvent. You must be trying to prank us into dissolving our wonderful Lego creations." To which I would have to say 3 things. 1. Why are you talking in that stupid voice? 2. That could actually be a really good way to get rid of some of my competition. And a lot less messy than my original plan. 3. It is true, acetone neat will dissolve Lego. So the trick is to dilute the acetone. If it's in solution, it won't harm the Lego bricks. It'll just loosen up the surface at a sort of microscopic level just enough to let it absorb the dye. A good solution is a 30% solution, I found. That's about 1 part acetone to 2 parts water. Now you do want the water to be as hot as you can get it to be. That seems to stimulate the reaction. But I'm just talking as hot as you'll come out of your kitchen faucet. There are some experts who claim to have had success using just fabric dye and boiling water to do the job. Boiling water. What could go wrong? So it kind of works, but it's going to seriously warp the bricks. It's very hard to handle them in boiling water. Here's an example of some bricks I boiled to dye for various lengths of time. So unless your goal is to produce some kind of Lego Salvador Dali painting, I would stick with the acetone. So by diluting the acetone and not using boiling water, this won't harm your bricks at all. They're going to end up with the same like shiny, lovely, smooth Lego finish. And the bricks are going to come apart and snap together again just the same as they did before. And the colour is going to be permanent. It's not going to rub off or fade or scratch off. So your bricks will be perfectly preserved. I stagger back, repulsed by the warm, sticky spray. Then the boy slips to the ground, and that's when I see the knife in his back. Already other tributes have reached the cornucopia and are spreading out to attack.
Demonstration!
So this is where the magic happens, if you're weird like that. You want to be near a water source because this stuff is going to stain anything it touches. You want to be able to wash it with a lot of water, and scouring pad is very handy. I also put a towel down. Use nothing but glass containers and metal implements because they're not going to stain. If you get this stuff on your hands, you're out of luck. This stuff's going to stay on for quite a while till it wears off. People are going to think your tattoo artist is going through some kind of abstract period. Okay, I'm going to do a small batch today. I've got a 120ml cup here and I want a 30% solution. So I'm going to put about 40 mils of acetone, which is about a third of one of these containers. Let's put that in to start with. Alright. Next we're going to want to top that off with really hot water. There we go. Now, as I mentioned before, RIT comes in both a liquid form and a powder form. If you're using the liquid form, you want to substitute about half of that water I just put in for the dye solution. Make sure you always shake the bottle first because the pigment tends to settle to the bottom. If you're using the powder, this amount will absorb about 1 sachet of the dye. It's about as much as you can get into it. Okay, now I'm opening the dye. Okay, almost ready to dye here. I've got just some white bricks today. Now if you want a subtle colour change, you can just use the liquid dye, and you're going to be soaking the bricks for about 5 to 15 minutes. If you want a much stronger effect, use the powder, and you'll only need to soak that between 1/4 minute and 5 minutes top. The longer you soak, the stronger or darker the dyeing effect. So what you're going to want to do the first time around is get a test batch of bricks, put them all in, then take them out at regular intervals and mark the time on each one. Then when you're done, you'll know which time represents the shade you want, and when you do the real batch of bricks, you can get a much more precise result. Now, you might be tempted to take a model you've built and just dye the whole thing, dunk it in the dye. This is not a good idea. What's going to happen is the outside will be dyed, but the dye is going to seep into the cracks, the tiny cracks between the bricks, and long after you've rinsed it and your model looks great, it's going to start bleeding dye onto any surface that it's near, like some kind of strange Madonna statue. So really, this process is all about dyeing the raw bricks. You just need to separate all the bricks and dye those. Okay, almost ready to dunk the bricks now. I'm just going to fill this other container with water. This is my dunk tank. When the time is up for a brick, I'm going to dunk it in there. That'll get enough dye off to stop the process straight away so it doesn't keep dyeing. And then we just basically need to start the clock once we've got all the bricks in. Into the brew they go. Now Lego does float, so you will have to squish them down and stir a little bit. I found that just continuous stirring the whole time actually helps a lot, but sometimes that's just no fun. So we are about 30 seconds in, and I'm going to take out the first brick. Here we go. Into the dunk tank. And I'm going to rinse that off while the next lot get ready to come out. Okay, here comes the next one. And the next one. I'm going to write down the times on these, and we're going to leave the next batch for a longer period of time. 1/2, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Okay, while those are brewing, we're going to talk a bit about painting. So let's talk about paint. So I did try paint before I tried dyeing. What I used were these enamel spray paints. You can get these at most hobby stores. They come in lots of really nice subtle colours, like military colours. A couple of considerations when you're thinking about using paint. One is that because it covers the bricks, it's going to change the finish to either a matte or a gloss, depending on the paint you've got. Another consideration is hobby store nerds. Another thing to consider as well is that it's going to chip anywhere anything comes into contact with the bricks. I tried tests on smaller pieces of Lego, and here you can see it kind of pools in the crevices, or you get shadows where the aerosol simply didn't land. The solution to this, of course, is get yourself an airbrush. An airbrush allows you to deposit the paint in a very thin, even layer all around the model. A couple of problems with that. One, the expense and the complexity of an airbrush. Two, makes you into a hobby store nerd. So I would just recommend painting Lego when you're dealing with large, smooth surfaces, such as this, although that's not actually Lego. Uh-oh. So that was just a demo to show you how I go about dyeing the bricks. What I'm going to show you now are the fruits of my labour. I've been experimenting with different combinations of dye colours and brick colours to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what produces some interesting results. Now, this is a very experimental process, and I haven't figured out all the problems yet. There's a lot of trial and error. I'm not giving you a cookie cutter process you can follow. You're going to have to do some experimentation too. Anyway, I'll show you what I've done, and I'll explain some of the things that didn't work so well as well. Let's see, this is an example of the colour I use for Gollum. I actually have part of it coloured and part of it white, so you can see the difference. This was liquid dye, dark brown, which obviously is slower acting, but it produced a nice subtle even effect. Something interesting I found out while I was doing this is that different kinds of Lego bricks absorb dye at different rates. For example, minifig hands do not absorb dye at all, whereas these little clip plates here, which were in at the same time as the other Gollum bricks, went really, really dark really quickly. Okay, I'm going to show you some other colours now. Generally, the brick at the top is the original undyed version of the brick, so you can see how these compare to the original standard Lego colours. This was a light pink dye I used. Some very pleasing shades depending on how long you've dipped it. This is the number of minutes here. There's a slightly darker shade, a fuchsia they have, which creates a more pronounced effect, still quite nice. One of the unusual things I found was that any of the colours that contain a pink or a red have some component that accelerates the effect of the acetone dramatically, causing the bricks to dissolve faster, so you have to just dye very short periods of time when you're using these pink colours. For example, here's a brick that I just left in for like 12 minutes, and you can see it's pretty badly damaged. None of the other colours have this effect. I also dyed some non-white bricks, so here we can see tan with a pink tint and light blay with a pink tint. Some nice results there. Sometimes the components of the dyes are what you think they are, and the effect is surprising. I actually tried dyeing these bricks, these white bricks, with a tan or a taupe dye, and it separated out into different components, and the only one that actually absorbed into the bricks was a bluish component, so I got blue instead of tan, but nevertheless it's kind of a nice light blue colour. You can see this is almost a sort of a pale blue, rainbow dash kind of a colour there. I also tried this out on some plates, just so you can see that it works on anything. Actually, while I was doing the taupe / blue, I just wanted to see if bricks that have been engraved and painted like this would be damaged, or whether the paint would come off, and in fact it's not. It seems to be perfectly preserved, which is nice. So this was the result of the little demonstration I showed you earlier. Now, I did rush this a bit. I didn't really take care, and some things worked and some things didn't work so well. You can see there's a bit of blotching. You will sometimes find some bricks will just have a blotchy or uneven effect when you dye them. This is not always the case. Some people will say you should pre-wash or pre-treat your bricks in sort of rubbing alcohol and soap and water to get rid of the sort of skin oils that this harms them. I tried that, made no difference at all. Anyway, here you can see the half minute, 1 minute, 2 minute that we did, and it's quite a pleasing effect. I did use this purple colour previously, and it really is quite strong. Here are some I just dipped, literally just dunked, just like that for a couple of seconds, and you can see immediately its effect. This is quite a good approximation to Lego's lavender colour here. And I tried the same thing with light blay, and also with dark blay. Those bricks I left in for an extra period of time. This is how dark they ended up, which actually is quite nice. I mean, it's not the same as Lego Dark Purple because it hasn't got the brightness, but it's kind of pleasing. And here's some I left in even longer after that. It's a very dark purple, but cool, nice colours. And just for fun, here's a brick that I just dipped into the dye for varying lengths of time. By different amounts, and the end result was a kind of nice psychedelic effect. So you don't have to just dunk the bricks completely and colour them in one colour. You can do kind of creative things like this if you want as well. Now, one of the things I was really interested in is how I could darken bricks by varying degrees and the effect this would have on different coloured bricks using the black dye. In this one I used with a yellow brick instead of white. This is the liquid dye, so it's a very slow effect. It took about 16 minutes to get to what I would call a dark yellow, which is a colour I've been wishing Lego would produce for years. I actually call this the Captain Kirk shirt colour, until a friend of mine pointed out that officially Captain Kirk's shirt was a kind of light green. Anyway, he's dead now, so I'm going to call that the Kirk Yellow. And here is the same experiment, this time with the powder, which is much stronger, so the times are much less. And a very surprising thing happened. Yellow darkened to green shades. So here we have a nice kind of dull lime green. I kind of like that. And then we get into sort of almost military green colour there, and then much darker green. If you wanted, you could probably fake up Lego's new olive green quite easily using Lego that's yellow and just use black. So which would be great because you can't get very many kinds of bricks in that colour at the moment. Other brightly coloured bricks that I darkened. Here's orange. Actually ends up sort of roughly approximating to medium dark flesh and also dark orange. Notice how just the brightness goes and it just gets darker. And here's lime green. Again, various things happening to it as it gets darker, and some very interesting colours here. I can imagine the military crowd having a great time trying to create different sort of military greens, perhaps even take dark blue and turn it into old grey, I don't know. Now here's something that seemed promising at the time, but then a problem emerged. I thought I could create dark red, dark green, and dark blue and dark brown by simply taking the standard colours and just darkening them. And to some extent that worked. And on camera here it probably looks pretty good. We've got everything from a simulation of standard Lego dark red here to a much deeper maroon, and here we have something resembling standard Lego dark green at the bottom here. I even did this to the blue and the brown, as I'll show you here. So it gets darker, and then you've got normal brown turned into dark brown, which is another colour that's kind of hard to work with because there's so few pieces in that colour made by Lego. The problem I found with the bright colours, when you have to darken them with black, you have to darken them for a fair amount of time to get these deep shades, and this revealed a weird chemical problem. Afterwards, after it would dry, a whitish grey residue, almost like an oxidized layer, would start to form on the surface of the brick and cloud the whole colour. I'll show you an extreme example here. This was an earlier attempt at dark red. Doesn't look dark red at all, does it? The weird thing is I could sort of scrape it off with my fingernail quite easily. But that seemed like a fairly tedious way to get the original colour back. I've tried everything to try and get this patina to sort of be removed. I tried baking soda and vinegar and brasso, and it just doesn't want to come off. So I haven't figured out how to prevent this yet. It doesn't seem to happen all the time, and it seems to happen when you soak with the dark colours for longer. So if you can get shades you want in short soaks, you're probably less likely to hit this problem. Here you can see I scraped away really methodically here, and you can actually see that beautiful dark red showing through this rather unpleasant layer. One of the things you need to understand about dyes is they're not opaque like paint, so you can only use them to darken the colour of the existing brick, or basically add colour to an existing brick. You can't start with a black brick and make it white. So it's all about darkening and adding subtler tones. You can't really make a brick as bright as a red brick just using the dye alone. Okay, so that's all I have. I hope you learned something, such as how to make a video that's 90% padding, 10% content. If you're interested, there's 10 teapots hidden in the background of this video. Now, we had planned a big musical finale. Unfortunately, the boombox broke. So instead, we're going to look at pictures of pets playing chess. And in conclusion, yeah.